Joining us now here in studio in New York, award-winning journalist Martin Fletcher. He spent nearly 4 decades with us at NBC News as a foreign correspondent and bureau chief in Tel Aviv. His new book is titled Teachers, the Ones I Can't Forget. And to honor his work, NBC News teamed up with Christie's Auction House to debut an exhibit that opened just this week. Martin, it's so great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you, Willie.
I want to get to the book in just a moment, but let's talk about what's happening in a place you covered for so long and so closely and lived for so long in Israel. What exactly, for our American audience, are we seeing in the streets right now, and how extraordinary is it, particularly when you see the military sort of taking the other side of the prime minister here?
Yeah, we're not part of the military, part of the police force. The whole country is divided deeply over this proposed changes, which would change the nature of Israel. I mean, Israel has always held forth as the democracy in the Middle East. This would limit the democracy in Israel. The idea that a simple majority of one in Parliament can overrule the Supreme Court on any question entirely changes the nature of the state. That's what it's all about.
So, Martin, surprisingly sharp words exchanged between the White House and Prime Minister Netanyahu in recent days over this. The White House noted with some satisfaction that there was a pause, but they've indicated they're going to be watching carefully. And then Netanyahu's statement afterwards suggested that they'll be making their own decisions there, no matter the input from any other country, particularly a friend. It was clearly aimed at the United States. So how do you suppose this will potentially strain relations between these two countries, especially if Netanyahu goes for this again in a couple months?
Well, Netanyahu has to speak out of both sides of his mouth. He has to project himself as being strong against the United States to his government and to his supporters. You know, we would not be pushed around by the United States. The message to the United States is, don't worry, we're going to pause things, we're going to slow things down, bear with us. Israel cannot alienate the United States of America. It can hardly exist without the support of the United States of America. And that's a dilemma he finds himself in. He's formed a government with a right-wing element that's pushing him in a direction against democracy, against the values that Israel was founded under, and against the values of the United States and of Europe, for that matter, the democracy. So he's between a rock and a hard place. And what he's going to do, we don't know. It's too early to say. But the demonstrators say we're not going to stop. At the moment, it's on pause, till after the Passover holidays. But it's going to go back to the same place, and there'll be the same demonstrations in the street.
And clearly, he's been a little stunned by the size of the demonstrations and the people who have opposed him on this matter. I want to talk about the book, Teachers, the Ones I Can't Forget.
Thank you.
You have been to us as just a storied foreign correspondent for so many years, sort of a guidepost as we get to go to you in different places around the world, and you bring these stories to us, often from war zones. But in this book, you highlight, as you say, the ones you can't forget, some of the people who touched you over the years as you reported on them. Tell us about the idea behind the book, with each story accompanied by a photograph, as we said, which is sort of part of a traveling exhibit as well.
Yeah, well, I wanted to write a book. I always wanted to write a book about what I learned from these people who I met basically on the worst days of their lives, And I always joke that if I'm going to write a book about what I learned, it's going to be a pretty small book. And actually, it is pretty small.
A little bit, yeah.
But powerful lessons from extraordinary people I met in the worst days of their lives. And I learned a lot from them, and I took a lot away from them. So what I wanted to do was create images. They're not really photographs. They're images digitally edited, taken from freeze frames from stories from NBC Stories, Nightly News, and Today Show. And I wanted to create an image that didn't inform, as I would as a journalist, but evoke a response from the viewer. That's what I wanted to do. And then it became the book. Each chapter begins with one of these amazing photographs.
We're looking at some of these images now as you're speaking, Martin. One of the girls you write about is a little Ugandan girl named Evelyn. Tell me about her and why she moved you the way she did.
Yeah, well, Evelyn is an unforgettable little girl, 8 years old. Her mother and father both died of AIDS. She's HIV positive. And charming, polite, lovely little kid. But what was the window into her soul, really, for me, was her school book. Under the name of the school, she, instead of like Kampala Junior, she wrote School of Struggle. And under the name of the class, not maths or geography, she wrote Class of Hope. School of Struggle, Class of Hope. An 8-year-old orphan, HIV positive. I mean, how can you forget that? And she stayed with me ever since.
Speaking to the breadth of your experience, though, another picture in here is one about a would-be suicide bomber whose bomb does not go off in that moment. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, that was taken. This is a unique image you've never seen. No one's seen this kind of thing before. It's a unique image of a suicide bomber pulling it. She's pulling at the detonator cord, trying to blow herself up in that instant. But the bomb doesn't go off, and she's screaming in frustration and rage. And this picture was taken by an Israeli security camera. And again, I worked on it digitally to create this image, which I think is shocking and powerful. And yet, you know, it's all about understanding who she is. I mean, the story I did was not about, oh my God, this is terrible, which it is, of course. But it was about, the story I did was about who is she? How does she get to that place? You know, as a matter of fact, very briefly, she had been suffering from burns. Her life was saved by Israeli doctors. Her parents wrote a thank you letter to the Israeli hospital. And her target of the suicide bomb was the same Israeli hospital.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, we have just scratched the surface of your career. There's so much in here. It's great images and the stories behind them. The book is called Teachers, The Ones I Can't Forget. The great Martin Fletcher. It's so nice to see you. Thanks for being here. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you very much, guys.
And